Okay, before we get into our masterclass for the week, just a little announcement. We will not have masterclass next week because I myself have to go to class, a different kind of class, of course. But anyway, I'm going to have to miss the weekend with my people and offer just mass privately or something. And so we won't have class because there won't be an explanation given at my mass, and that's what these ultimately are. Okay, for the last couple of weeks, we've been looking at the temple and how the temple compares to our Catholic worship. The structure of the temple, the furnishings of the temple, the altar, the Ark of the Covenant, the menorah that is used, those types of things, and how that compares with like our tabernacle, our altar, our lampstand, our candle that we keep burning before the presence of the Lord in the Eucharist, that kind of stuff. This week, I want to zoom in a little bit more on the temple, and I want to look at the vessels, the sacred vessels that are used in temple worship, and how, if at all, they compare with our sacred vessels that we use during Mass. And that's the first point here, is that they're called sacred vessels. Not just ordinary, not common vessels, but they're something that is sacred, holy, set apart for no other purpose but for the worship of God. We know that in the Old Testament, God commands all kinds of various sacrifices. And with those sacrifices, there were certain actions that were demanded, certain things that they had to do in order to complete the sacrifices. And so he also gives instructions for crafting for themselves these vessels that were needed. Things like fire pans and basins and bowls for catching the blood, different forks and other utensils that were used to handle the bloody sacrifices, for example. Or there was like an incense thing, a censer that was used for burning incense that would provide like a sign, a visible sign of the sacrifices ascending to God with a pleasing aroma, a pleasant fragrance. And then there was also this other sacrifice that took place in the holy place called the bread of the presence. This really cool thing. I know I keep mentioning it, and we'll talk about it further down the road. I'm just going to keep kicking that can, I guess, but it's really awesome. Anyway, so they had different dishes and flagons that would go with the bread of the presence and a libation, a wine libation that was offered in conjunction with the bread of the presence. So really, really cool things. And these vessels were, again, crafted by the people at the instruction of God, and they were used for sacred purposes. And so being sacred purposes, they were to use precious metals like bronze or gold especially. These precious metals that were maybe like a step above what they would typically use, the common usage of vessels in their homes and in other discourses. Something that was truly a step above, to show the dignity of what it was that they were doing. And for that matter, to show and to remind the people, like, I've got to handle these things with care. I don't want to just treat them casually or flippantly, but instead I'm carrying this vessel, or I'm carrying this utensil that is used for the worship of God, the worship that God has commanded us to offer him. And so I want to use it appropriately and with reverence, with great reverence and attention. So that's really cool. We also, in our Catholic Mass, we have sacred vessels. Those various offerings and sacrifices that they were to offer, they were good and upright before the Lord. The offering that we have is the one sacrifice of Jesus on the cross that is united with the sacrifice of Jesus at the Last Supper, which the fruit of it, of course, is the offering itself. But what is it that's being offered is the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus, the living and real presence of Jesus on earth in our midst. We're offering him, not it. We're offering him to the Father. And if that's the case, that this offering, it so far surpasses the offerings of the Old Covenant that in some ways it's hard even to compare them. But if that's true, then how much more ought we to approach our sacred vessels with reverence and care and dignity, giving God our best? And so what are the sacred vessels that we use? Well, things that you've seen so many times. The chalice, that is probably the most prominent of them, just because it's the tallest thing that people tend to notice. The chalice that is used to hold the precious blood of Jesus, the body and blood of Jesus. The paten, that gold plate, or sometimes it might look like a bowl of sorts, that again holds the bread that turns into the body and blood of Jesus. There's another gold standing thing called a ciborium, which is used for the reservation of the Holy Eucharist in the tabernacle. We consecrate more bread into the body and blood of Jesus than oftentimes is needed for any given Mass. And so we take the leftover consecrated hosts, the Eucharist, and we put it in this gold vessel or other precious metal, a vessel, and called the ciborium, and we put that into the tabernacle for the reservation, and also to know that the presence of Jesus is with us in our church, in the tabernacle. We also have thurible, which is a fancy way of saying a censer. We offer incense as well, or we use incense as something that accompanies our offering of the Eucharist, again, as a sign of the pleasing fragrance and the sign of the offering ascending to the Father. There's also another vessel that's used that's not part of Mass, but in some ways it's like an extension of Mass. It's called Eucharistic adoration. And this vessel that is used is called a monstrance, where we take this thing made of precious metal again. It's got a window in it, and we take one of the consecrated hosts of the Eucharist and we put it in that window so that those who are in the church, who are in the presence of this monstrance, in the presence of Jesus in the Eucharist, they can look at the Lord and they can adore him and love him in it, worshiping the Holy Eucharist. So anyway, these sacred vessels, and again, this offering that we're offering is it's so great, it's so incredible, it's like unspeakably good, that they demand that these vessels be made of precious metals, like gold most often, but sometimes silver as well. It like demands that because of the dignity of the offering itself. And to be sure, these vessels are not to be used for any other purpose. No other purpose. In fact, there's one story I heard one time. A bishop was talking about Dorothy Day, who was this woman who lived in the 1900s. She started this movement called the Catholic Worker Movement. And part of this movement was, this community of people, of Catholics who lived with her, and they would invite a priest over sometimes to offer Mass. And this priest, for some reason, he's being casual, and so he grabbed a coffee mug from the table and used that as the vessel for the precious blood at Mass. Not recommended at all. But anyway, he did this. He offered the Mass, and then he left. After the Mass was over, and after the priest left, Dorothy Day took the coffee mug, and one of the people that was living with her asked, what are you doing with that? And she said, this held the body and blood of the Lord. It can't possibly be used for any other reason, for any other purpose, for any other instance. So she took it, she broke it, and she buried it in the backyard. This was a woman who understood the dignity of the Holy Eucharist, the dignity of every vessel that is used. And so she treated that vessel according to the way that because what else are you going to use that coffee mug for? You're not going to use it for Mass again, because it's not really appropriate to use for Mass again. You're not going to use it to drink coffee or water or anything else. And so let's find a way to appropriately discard it in a reverent kind of way. And that's how these vessels are to be treated, with reverence, with great care, with a devotion in themselves of some sort, to really try to be on our best behavior in a way, and to really make them of the best, to make them of a level higher than anything else we would use in our homes or in any other discourse, to use them in such a way that we understand that it communicates to us the great dignity of the Eucharist, the great dignity of the Mass. That's why this is so important. And I know that sometimes our vessels might seem like, gosh, that's a little bit too ornamental, that's a little bit too, it seems like it's too much. But if we really understand what the Eucharist is there anything that's too much to offer to our King, to offer our King within? I don't know. It's so good. It points to the reality that our worship is not ordinary, it's not casual, but it's something that's truly extraordinary. It is so focused on God that we need every help that we can get to remember that we ourselves need to focus on God in our worship. What an incredible gift. Okay, I hope that's helpful for you. I will look forward to seeing you in our next session. Peace.